It's Sunday, December 20th, and you're watching The Great Lost Rewatch. Today we're talking about One of Us. This is a Juliet-centric episode, and we join her when she is saying goodbye to her sister Rachel to go to the island, which is incredibly sad. Juliet, Richard Alpert, and Ethan go into the airport, which I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it, but it definitely spells her a rat, meaning Juliet is a rat. Richard Alpert puts a tranquilizer in Juliet's orange juice, saying you'll want to be knocked out for the trip on the sub. It's kind of a bumpy ride. And Juliet, that sets off red flags. But Richard Alpert talks her into it in a very similar way that a lot of our Lost characters are talked into things, in that they are emphasized that they are special. There's something special about them. When she wakes up, she's strapped into the submarine, and she goes out and she sees the island, and she meets Ben. Another part of her flashback, we learn that one of the others has died during her pregnancy, and apparently this has been a reoccurring theme why they brought Juliet on the island in the first place. And she tells Ben that in order to test the theory that this happens at conception, she has to take somebody off the island, but Ben says no way. And then Juliet says, well, there's nothing more that I can do. My 6 months is up. I'm going home. And Ben's like, your sister has cancer. Ben promises that they will cure Rachel's cancer if Juliet stays until this problem about having babies on the island is solved. Knowing what we know now, and the fact that at that point Ben had never even seen, let alone spoken to Jacob, is very interesting because you can just tell that Ben's just making this stuff up. It's the day before Flight 815 crashes. Juliet says, if you can cure cancer, how come you have it? And Ben is just like, I have no idea. And then Juliet flips out on him.
You never cured her.
I did.
You're a liar.
No, Juliet.
You lied to me.
I told you the truth.
This seems like an appropriate time to take a moment and appreciate what a great actress Elizabeth Mitchell is. So now it's the day of the crash. Richard Alpert has a camera in Miami, and they prove to Juliet that her sister is still alive and gave birth to a son, which she names Julian.
I'm not a liar, Juliet.
It's amazing he was not struck by lightning just then. On the island, Jack, Kate, Saeed, and Juliet are heading back towards the beach camp. Saeed begins to question Juliet, but then Jack comes back saying, I trust her, so that should be enough. Back at the beach camp, Claire's not feeling well, so Sawyer goes to get aspirin for her, and that's when Jack, Saeed, and Kate come back to camp, and then we have a sweet reunion. My favorite part being when Sawyer and Jack do like the handshake, and then they go in for the man hug. And everybody's just really happy and content, and we all have a good feeling.
What the hell is she doing here?
And good feeling gone. This is a small moment of the episode, but it's always been one of the most striking to me when Hurley goes to watch over Juliet and they're talking about Ethan.
You buried him over there.
Like, Hurley's threatening her. He's threatening Juliet. Claire's condition gets even worse, and Juliet goes to Kate saying, I have to talk to Jack. I know what's wrong with Claire. And Kate says, how do you know what's wrong with Claire? And then Juliet responds,
Because I did it to her.
She goes on to explain why the women on this island, when they get pregnant, they die. Somewhere during their first trimester, the pregnancy turns on them and it becomes like a virus. And she created this serum that they were administering to Claire, which is why Ethan was going and injecting her, because she was already showing these signs of the pregnancy turning, even though she did not conceive on the island. So Juliet is going to go get some serum at Ethan's old drop-off point and give it to Claire. She goes to get the serum, but Saeed and Sawyer have followed her, and they're saying, we're going to take a time out to talk. And Juliet kind of basically bullies them and rubs their noses in their past mistakes. Juliet gives the serum to Claire, and Claire feels better. Having cured Claire, the camp is taking baby steps to trusting Juliet, and Jack goes to talk to Juliet, and he says, eventually they'll need some answers, but for now, I think you're in the clear. And Juliet says to Jack, how come I never have to explain myself to you, Jack? And Jack says, because I was right next to you when that submarine exploded, and I saw your face, and you want off this island more than anything in the world, and that makes you one of us. Juliet is putting together her shelter, and through the course of the episode and finding out a little bit more about her backstory, we've come to kind of really trust Juliet and want to like her. And then, the last scene kind of dashes our hopes when we find out that she was working for Ben the whole time. They're the ones that made Claire sick. They set up this whole thing, and Juliet is a rat. One of Us is a really great example of why I'm really loving this rewatch, because it's not an episode that we as the fandom kind of geek out over and discuss a lot, but it's one of those episodes when you go back and you watch it, you remember, oh yeah, that is a great episode. And that's where we're going to leave it today, with Juliet tying knots. Liz, you're going to talk about Catch-22 tomorrow, so I'll see you then.
We're gonna need to watch that again.